Most people think social success is about knowing the right words, having clever things to say, sounding impressive. But Leil Lowndes discovered something much deeper. The real secret to connecting with anyone has very little to do with what you say. It's about how you make people feel before, during, and even after you speak. It's about mastering the silent language of connection. This is where most communication books fall short. They teach lines, techniques, conversation starters. But they miss the truth that Lowndes reveals in How to Talk to Anyone. Relationships, whether professional, romantic, or casual, aren't built on perfect phrasing. They're built on perception, on body language, on emotional cues, on subtle, almost invisible behaviors that instantly tell people whether they should open up or shut down. And once you understand those cues, you can walk into any room and create a sense of warmth, authority, and trust without trying to perform. You stop worrying about saying the right thing. You start focusing on being the right presence. Lowndes spent years decoding how the most charismatic people make others feel at ease. She didn't just observe the obvious extroverts, the loud, funny, or bold. She studied leaders, diplomats, negotiators, and connectors who could walk into a space and, within seconds, shift the mood. People leaned toward them. Smiles formed. Conversation flowed naturally. And most of the time, these people weren't even saying much. They were using what Lowndes calls techniques of silent influence. Small moves, thoughtful pauses, meaningful eye contact, micro-expressions that signal, "You're safe with me," postures that say, "I respect you," tones that suggest, "I value this moment." These aren't tricks. They're social signals hardwired into human psychology. Signals that bypass rational thought and speak directly to emotion, memory, and instinct. And the good news? They're skills, not gifts, which means anyone can learn them. Even people who feel awkward. Even introverts. Even those who've struggled with conversation their entire lives. In this video, we're going to explore what Lowndes teaches in depth. Not just how to make small talk, but how to. Why do some people instantly command respect without raising their voice? Why do others make you feel like the most important person in the room, even when they say almost nothing? Why do certain introductions lead to deep connection while others fade into forgettable moments? The answers are here. And they're practical. If you stay with this video until the end, you'll learn how to apply these insights in real life. You'll understand how to create rapport that feels effortless, how to make powerful first impressions, how to keep conversations alive without awkwardness, and how to leave people not just impressed by your words, but changed by your presence. Because in the end, the most likable, persuasive, and respected people don't just know how to talk. They know how to make others feel seen, heard, and understood. And once you learn that language, you'll never struggle with connection again. Part 1. First impressions speak before you say a single word. People have already decided who you are. Not consciously, not with logic, but with instant, automatic impressions that form in the first few seconds of meeting you. Leil Lowndes emphasizes that this window, the moment when you walk into a room, meet someone's eyes, or approach a group, defines more about your future relationship than almost anything you say later. It's not fair. It's not rational. But it's real. And it's based on a primal survival instinct. For thousands of years, humans have had to quickly assess whether a stranger was a threat or an ally. Whether someone could be trusted or should be avoided. That wiring hasn't changed. It just shows up now in boardrooms, social events, coffee shops, and even casual street encounters. The moment someone sees you, their subconscious scans for signals. Is this person confident? Are they open? Do they respect me? Should I engage or retreat? Those answers don't come from your words. They come from your posture, your facial expression, the energy you carry, even the timing of your movements. Lowndes studied how charismatic people handle this moment. They don't rush. They don't fidget. They don't approach others with nervous speed or hesitation. They carry what she calls the big cat energy, the calm, graceful presence of someone who belongs wherever they are. Not because they demand attention, but because they don't need to. One of her core techniques is the flooding smile. Instead of flashing a wide grin the moment you see someone, a habit that can seem forced or needy, charismatic people let their smile unfold slowly. They let their eyes connect first, then allow the smile to appear naturally, as if it was inspired by seeing the person. This signals authenticity and warmth without desperation. Another key is posture. Most people collapse into themselves when they feel socially uncertain. Shoulders hunch, eyes lower, movements shrink. But Lowndes observed that socially confident people expand. They stand tall, their shoulders open, their gestures are smooth and measured. This isn't arrogance. It's a nonverbal message: I'm safe, I'm secure, you can trust me. And timing matters too. In conversation, charismatic individuals allow a half-second pause before responding. That brief moment suggests thoughtfulness and presence. It also creates a rhythm that feels respectful and engaging. Rushed responses signal anxiety. Measured ones signal confidence. But perhaps the most powerful first impression cue Lowndes discovered is eye contact that balances warmth and strength. Too much intensity can feel aggressive. Too little feels evasive. The right balance tells people, I see you, I'm here, and I'm not afraid of connection. All of these behaviors work together not because they manipulate people, but because they align with what the human brain wants to feel at the start of any relationship: safety, respect, and curiosity. Lowndes reminds us that most people overthink what they'll say when meeting someone new. They script their lines, rehearse questions, prepare small talk. But in reality, the silent signals speak louder than any words. If you enter a room carrying calm energy, open posture, intentional movement, a natural smile, and steady eye contact, you've already done 80% of the work. The conversation becomes easier because people have already decided they like you. And that's the secret. Before you try to impress anyone with your wit, wisdom, or words, master the language of first impressions. Because once people feel good about who you are, they'll be eager to hear what you have to say next. Part 2. How to create instant rapport. First impressions open the door. But rapport, that sense of ease and connection, invites people to step inside. It's what turns strangers into allies, acquaintances into friends, and casual contacts into lasting relationships. And Leil Lowndes makes it clear, rapport doesn't happen by accident. It's created, often within the first few minutes of interaction. What most people don't realize is that rapport is not about similarity. It's about resonance. Two people can have nothing obvious in common, but if they feel heard, understood, and emotionally aligned, a powerful connection forms. Lowndes breaks down how charismatic people create that resonance so quickly. The first technique is deceptively simple: listen like it matters. Not the passive listening most people do, waiting for their turn to speak, nodding while thinking of what to say next. Real listening. The kind where you react not just to the words but to the emotion behind them. She observed that people who connect deeply often mirror the tone and energy of the person they're speaking with. Not in a robotic way, but in a subtle, natural rhythm. This isn't mimicry. It's a signal. It tells the other person, I'm on your wavelength. Another key is the use of what Lowndes calls verbal backchannels. Small affirmations like, I see, interesting, or a simple MMM at the right moment. These cues encourage the speaker to continue. They show engagement without interrupting. And over time, they create a conversational flow where both people feel equally valued. But rapport isn't just about responding. It's about framing the interaction positively from the start. Lowndes points out that charismatic communicators often begin with a shared observation or a gentle compliment. Not flattery, but a recognition of something real. This creates what psychologists call positive association. The brain starts linking the experience of the conversation itself with good feelings. There's also a power in asking thoughtful, open-ended questions. Instead of the usual "what do you do?" or "where are you from?" which lead to rehearsed, shallow answers, they ask questions that invite stories. What's been keeping you inspired lately? What's a project you've been excited about? These kinds of prompts give people a chance to share meaning, not just information. But perhaps the most overlooked factor in creating rapport is presence. Lowndes emphasizes that in a world of constant distraction, giving someone your full attention, even for a few minutes, feels rare and valuable. No glancing at your phone. No scanning the room. No rehearsing your next line. Just being fully there. People feel that, and they respond to it. When all these elements come together, something remarkable happens. The conversation moves past surface-level talk and into a space where people feel not just heard, but understood. Where the guard drops. Where trust begins. And when someone trusts you in conversation, they remember you. Not because of what you said, but because of how you made them feel in those first, crucial moments. That's how rapport works. It's not about impressing people. It's about making them feel at ease. Making them feel seen. And once you do that, the connection doesn't just happen, it accelerates. Part 3. The art of making others feel important. If there's one truth that runs through all human interaction, it's this: everyone wants to feel important. Not in an arrogant, self-centered way, but in the quiet, deeply human desire to be seen, to be acknowledged, to feel that who they are and what they say actually matters. Leil Lowndes shows that the people who master social connection aren't those who try to look important. They're the ones who make others feel important. And that's where influence, likability, and trust begin. Lowndes points out that most people approach conversations unconsciously focused on themselves. How they appear, how they sound, whether they're making a good impression. But charismatic people flip that instinct. They make the other person the star of the interaction. This starts with a simple but powerful shift. When you meet someone, focus fully on them. Not just their words. Their energy. Their emotions. Their concerns. Their victories. Everything about them becomes the center of your attention. And the more you focus, the more they feel valued. Lowndes highlights a technique she calls the premature we. When appropriate, bring the idea of partnership or shared identity into the conversation early. Phrases like, "We both know how tricky that can be," or "That's something we'd both appreciate," subtly create a sense of alliance. The listener feels not just heard, but included. You've moved from you and me to us. And that creates a bond. Another subtle but powerful method is to remember and use people's names, not just as a greeting, but naturally throughout the conversation. Research has shown that hearing our own name triggers a unique psychological response. It pulls attention, signals recognition, and deepens the feeling of being seen. But making others feel important isn't just about what you say. It's about how you respond. Lowndes emphasizes the power of reflective listening, mirroring back not just the facts someone shares, but the emotions behind them. If someone talks about a recent challenge, don't just say, "That must have been tough." Go deeper. That sounds like it really tested your patience. How did you work through it? This moves the conversation from polite acknowledgement to genuine empathy. Charismatic communicators also know when to pause. They don't rush to fill silences. They give space for the other person's words to land. That pause says, "I'm considering what you said. It matters." But perhaps the most important part of making someone feel important is consistency. It's not enough to offer a compliment or a kind word at the start of a conversation. The feeling of significance has to continue throughout the interaction, and beyond. Following up on something someone mentioned days or weeks earlier, remembering details about their goals or challenges, shows that you didn't just listen in the moment. You cared enough to remember. This is what makes certain people unforgettable. They leave others not just impressed by their intelligence or wit, but touched by how valued they felt in their presence. Lowndes reminds us that in a world where most people feel overlooked, rushed, or judged, giving someone the gift of genuine importance is more than a social skill. It's a form of leadership. It's a way of lifting others up, building loyalty, and creating lasting connections that go beyond small talk. And when you master that art, people don't just enjoy talking to you. They seek you out. They remember you. They trust you. Because you didn't just hear them. You honored them. Part 4. How to keep conversations flowing effortlessly. A conversation that flows feels effortless. Natural. Like water moving downhill. But anyone who's ever faced an awkward silence knows how quickly that flow can stop. Lowndes reveals that the difference between those who keep conversations alive and those who struggle isn't talent or extroversion. It's understanding the subtle dynamics of conversational energy. Most people think of conversations as a tennis match: serve, return, back and forth. But that's not how charismatic communicators approach it. They treat conversations like a dance. Sometimes you lead. Sometimes you follow. Sometimes you pause and let the music, the other person's emotions or thoughts, set the pace. One of Lowndes' most effective insights is that great conversationalists don't fear silence. They understand that brief pauses aren't a failure. They're breathing spaces. Moments where thoughts can deepen, where the other person might reflect or add something meaningful. Filling every gap with chatter signals anxiety, not confidence. But when the flow does slow down, Lowndes recommends a powerful technique she calls the free information principle. People constantly reveal little details about their lives without realizing it. When someone mentions a hobby, a recent trip, a family member, or even an emotion, they're offering a thread. Instead of moving on or responding with your own story, you pick up that thread. Ask a follow-up question. Explore that topic a little deeper. This does two things. First, it shows genuine interest. Second, it shifts the energy back to the person speaking, which most people find comforting. It takes the pressure off them to carry the conversation alone. Another key to keeping flow is staying emotionally present. Many people listen with one ear while the other part of their brain searches for the next clever thing to say. But real connection happens when you stay with what's happening now, not what you'll say next. You react not just to the words, but to the tone, the facial expression, the mood. Lowndes also teaches the value of using open-ended questions. Instead of yes/no prompts like, "Did you like the event?" Ask, "What was the most interesting part of the event for you?" These kinds of questions open doors. They encourage stories. And stories are the lifeblood of engaging conversation. But perhaps the most subtle skill is knowing when to pivot. If a topic runs out of energy, or if it touches a nerve, it's the conversationalist's job to gently steer things toward something fresh. Lowndes advises using transitional phrases like, "That reminds me," or, "Speaking of challenges, have you ever?" These shifts feel natural, not forced. They keep the rhythm going without jarring the other person. Ultimately, flowing conversation isn't about performing. It's about creating a shared space where both people feel comfortable, curious, and free to express themselves. The best conversationalists don't talk more. They create space for more to be said. And when you master that art, people don't just enjoy speaking with you. They feel relieved. Because you take away the fear of awkwardness and replace it with ease. That's not a social trick. That's social intelligence at its highest level. Part 5. The Power of Body Language and Nonverbal Cues. Long before a word is spoken, a conversation has already begun. It begins with posture, with the tilt of a head, with how close or far you stand, with the openness or guardedness of your shoulders, with the quality of your eye contact. Most people underestimate how much their bodies say when their mouths are silent. But Leil Lowndes knew the truth. In human connection, body language is often the loudest voice in the room. She observed that charismatic communicators rarely think of their gestures as separate from their words. The two flow together. But what sets them apart is that their nonverbal cues always reinforce the message they want to send. Warmth, confidence, respect, presence. One of the first things Lowndes points out is posture. People who slouch or shrink themselves unconsciously signal insecurity or reluctance. They appear to want to disappear. But those who hold themselves upright, not rigid, but aligned, signal readiness. Engagement. They say, "I belong here," without uttering a syllable. Movement matters too. Fidgeting, tapping, darting eyes, all of these can suggest nervousness or distraction. But stillness, punctuated by purposeful gestures, draws attention and suggests calm authority. Great communicators don't move constantly. They move meaningfully. Eye contact may be the most powerful nonverbal tool of all. Lowndes teaches that strong eye contact isn't about staring. It's about connecting. Too much intensity can feel invasive. Too little can feel evasive. The right balance communicates both interest and ease. It says, "I'm here with you. I'm not hiding. I'm not overpowering. I'm open." Facial expressions, often overlooked, also play a critical role. A genuine smile, a smile that reaches the eyes, can dissolve tension faster than any carefully chosen phrase. It's an invitation, an emotional green light. Lowndes also highlights the importance of spatial awareness. Standing too close can feel invasive. Standing too far can feel distant or disinterested. Skilled communicators instinctively adjust their physical distance based on the flow of the conversation and the comfort level of the other person. It's not about following a strict rule. It's about reading the room, reading the person, and adapting in real time. But the most fascinating insight Lowndes offers is that body language isn't just something you project. It's also something you mirror. People unconsciously synchronize their nonverbal cues when they feel rapport. Postures align. Speech rhythms match. Even breathing can synchronize. Recognizing and subtly encouraging this mirroring can deepen connection without a word being said. This is why people sometimes say, "We just clicked." They don't realize that their bodies had already entered into a silent dance of trust and mutual understanding. The mistake most people make is thinking that words alone can carry a conversation or a connection. But Lowndes shows that when body language and words align, they create a synergy far greater than either could achieve alone. In moments of high emotion, whether excitement, tension, or vulnerability, nonverbal cues often speak the clearest truth. They reveal sincerity. They build trust. They make others feel safe or, at times, signal caution. So if you want to become someone who connects effortlessly, it's not enough to craft better sentences. You must cultivate the kind of presence that speaks without speaking. Because when your body says, "I see you, I respect you, I'm open to you," most conversations don't just go well. They become memorable. Part 6. Building deep connections that last. First impressions matter. Smooth conversations matter. But in the long game of connection, what people remember isn't how clever you were or how perfectly you spoke. It's how consistently you made them feel valued over time. Leil Lowndes understood that the true masters of connection aren't those who impress in brief encounters. They're those who build relationships that deepen with every interaction. Deep connections don't happen by accident. They're cultivated. Slowly. Intentionally. With a level of awareness most people never practice. Lowndes explains that the first ingredient in deep connection is emotional memory. People don't remember facts. They remember feelings. When someone consistently feels heard, respected, and supported around you, their brain begins associating your presence with emotional safety. And that, more than anything, builds loyalty. But how do you create that emotional memory? It starts with follow-through. Many people are skilled at initial warmth. They greet you enthusiastically. They engage in friendly banter. But once the conversation ends, so does the connection. The truly charismatic go further. They remember details. They reference past conversations. They follow up on things you mentioned, sometimes weeks or months later. This signals not just good memory, but deep respect. Another powerful element is vulnerability. Not forced, but authentic. Lowndes points out that while confidence attracts people initially, vulnerability sustains the connection. When someone shares a struggle or doubt and you respond with understanding rather than judgment, a different level of trust forms. That's the moment when surface interaction becomes meaningful relationship. Consistency also plays a critical role. Charismatic people don't just offer kindness on good days or when it's convenient. They show up reliably. Their tone, attention, and respect don't fluctuate based on mood or circumstance. This reliability tells others, "You can count on me." And in a world where so much is unpredictable, that's rare and precious. Lowndes also emphasizes the importance of shared growth. Deep relationships aren't static. They evolve as both people evolve. Whether it's learning together, facing challenges together, or simply encouraging each other's ambitions, growth bonds people. Those who create lasting connections often take an active interest in the other person's journey. They don't just observe. They participate. And finally, the strongest connectors create a sense of belonging. They communicate, Verbally and non-verbally, you matter here. You're part of this story. This doesn't mean constant praise or flattery. It means recognizing the other person's value, even in small moments, a nod of appreciation, a thoughtful gesture, a quiet affirmation. When all of these elements combine, something remarkable happens. Casual conversations turn into trusted dialogues. Professional contacts become allies. Acquaintances become confidants. And over time, people come to associate your presence with not just connection, but meaning. Lowndes reminds us that in the end, the greatest social skill isn't cleverness or charisma. It's the ability to make others feel significant, not once, but repeatedly. That's what makes connections last. That's what makes them deepen. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Not because you spoke perfectly, but because you consistently made others feel important, understood, and valued. Part 7. The mindset of a master connector. Techniques can be learned. Phrases can be memorized. Body language can be practiced. But underneath every lasting skill lies something deeper: mindset. Lowndes discovered that what separates truly magnetic people from those who simply know the rules is not what they do, but how they think about connection itself. Master connectors approach every interaction with the belief that value flows both ways. They don't see conversations as performances or transactions. They see them as opportunities for understanding, for growth, for creating something meaningful that didn't exist before two people started talking. They also approach people with a quiet confidence rooted not in the need to impress, but in the belief that they have something worthwhile to offer. This belief changes everything. It removes the pressure to prove oneself. It shifts the focus outward, toward curiosity about the other person's world, rather than anxiety about one's own image. Lowndes observed that these individuals are not obsessed with being liked. Instead, they focus on being present and valuable. They trust that when they bring authentic attention, respect, and warmth to each encounter, likability becomes a natural byproduct. There's also a generosity in their thinking. Master connectors don't hoard attention. They share it. They elevate others in conversation, highlighting their strengths, asking about their passions, inviting their insights. They understand that making others feel valuable increases, not decreases, their own social standing. Another critical aspect of their mindset is resilience. Not every conversation flows. Not every introduction leads to instant rapport. But instead of seeing awkward moments or failed connections as rejections, they view them as part of the process. As learning. As reminders that no single interaction defines their worth or ability. Lowndes emphasizes that this mindset creates a feedback loop. The more you approach people with confidence, curiosity, and generosity, the more positive experiences you create. Those experiences build social momentum. That momentum builds reputation. And that reputation further reinforces your mindset. Over time, social mastery stops feeling like a strategy. It becomes a natural extension of who you are. But even the most skilled communicators remain students. They stay observant. They adapt to different personalities, cultures, and contexts. They never assume they've arrived. They remain humble in their growth, knowing that every new person offers a new lesson. That's the mindset of a master connector. Not perfection. Not control. Presence. Purpose. Curiosity. Consistency. And when you carry that mindset into every room, every introduction, every conversation, you stop trying to connect. You simply do. Because you've become the kind of person people naturally want to engage with, trust, and remember. Conclusion. Connection is a skill, not a secret by now, it's clear. The people who connect effortlessly aren't born with a mysterious gift. They've developed a mindset. They've practiced the cues. They've mastered the moments that make others feel valued, heard, and understood. And what Leil Lowndes proves in How to Talk to Anyone is that anyone, yes, anyone, can learn this. First impressions. Rapport. Deep conversations. Lasting relationships. They're not magic. They're the result of attention, empathy, and consistent practice. The best connectors don't wait for perfect words. They focus on presence. They create emotional safety. They lead with curiosity instead of performance. They treat every conversation not as a challenge to win, but as a space to explore. And when you apply even a few of the principles Lowndes teaches, you start to notice a shift. People open up faster. Conversations flow more smoothly. Opportunities appear where once there were walls. You stop fearing social interaction and start enjoying it, because you know how to guide it. So, now the question is yours. Which of these skills will you start practicing first? Will you master the first impression? Deepen your listening? Refine your body language? Or simply approach your next conversation with a little more presence and purpose? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear which insight from this video resonated most with you. And if you want to go deeper, get the full book How to Talk to Anyone by Leil Lowndes. The link is in the description. It's a toolkit you'll return to again and again as you build your social mastery. If this video opened new ideas for you, share it with a friend who's ready to elevate their communication. And don't forget to subscribe to Compact Wisdom, where we turn powerful books into practical breakthroughs, so you can grow your influence, your confidence, and your life. Thanks for watching. And remember, great conversations don't just happen. They're created by people like you.